Hello students, welcome to today's video lesson. Today, we shall discuss a beautiful story of two young boys and their fondness for horse riding. The story is titled The Summer of the Beautiful White Horse and is written by William Saroyan. It originally belongs to his 1940s collection titled My Name is Aram. Before we start discussing the story, let us familiarize ourselves with the writer William Saroyan. He was an Armenian-American novelist, short story writer and playwright, born in the year 1908. He was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for Drama in the year 1940. He won the Academy Award for Best Story in 1943 for the film adaptation of his novel The Human Comedy. Some of his best-known works are The Time of Your Life, My Name is Aram, and My Heart's in the Highlands. Let us now begin with the story. The narrator, Aram, nostalgically revisits his childhood when he was 9 and his cousin Murad was 11. Life was simpler back then, and he was an optimistic, hopeful young boy. Murad was a free spirit who was considered crazy by everybody else except him. One day, Murad visited Aram at 4 in the morning and woke him up by tapping on the window of his bedroom. Aram jumped out of his bed at his call, but could not believe what he saw as he looked out of the window. Through the window, he saw his cousin Murad sitting on a beautiful white horse. He rubbed his eyes to make sure he was not dreaming. Murad confirmed that it was indeed a horse and called him out for a ride. The narrator knew that his cousin was a free-spirited teenager who enjoyed being alive more than anybody else. Aram had always longed to ride a horse. However, they were too poor to afford them. He and his cousin belonged to the poor Garoglian tribe of Armenia. This detail prevented him from believing that Murad was actually riding a horse. The Garoglian tribe had no money, and every family of the tribe lived in abject poverty. Nobody could understand from where the tribe members got money for their food and survival. However, they were famous for their honesty and truthfulness. This honesty was the badge of their tribe. For 11 centuries, the Garoglian tribe had been known for their honesty. Even when the tribe was rich and consisted of the richest families, pride and honesty were their two primary virtues. They also believed in right and wrong and would never take advantage of anybody in the world, let alone stealing. Thus, even though the narrator could see the magnificent horse, smell it, and hear it breathing, he could not believe it was actually there in front of him. Murad's poverty and their tribe's values prevented him from believing that the horse had anything to do with Murad or him. He questioned Murad about where he had stolen the horse from, but Murad ignored the question and hurried him to a ride on the horseback. The young boy reasoned with himself that stealing a horse for a ride was not stealing. Moreover, it was not stealing unless you sold it to somebody else in return for money. He also felt that his and Murad's love for horses did not make it a theft. Next, the narrator gave a description of his residence on the edge of town, on Walnut Avenue. Behind their house was the countryside with vineyards, orchards, irrigation ditches, and country roads. The narrator and his cousin were soon trotting on horseback on Olive Avenue. Soon, Murad began to sing in a loud, roaring voice. According to our narrator, Murad was the natural descendant of the crazy streak in the tribe. Before him, it was Uncle Khosrow who was the crazy one. Uncle Khosrow was an enormous man with a head full of black hair and had the largest mustache in the entire of Samoakan Valley. He also had a furious temper and was irritable and impatient. He stopped people from talking by roaring his patent statement, "It is no harm, pay no attention to it." Once, when his house caught fire and his son had gone to inform him while he was having his mustache trimmed, he roared back and said that it was no harm and not to pay attention to it. He roared with more vigor when the barber tried to convince him about the urgency of the matter. The loss of materialistic possessions seemed very insignificant to this man who had lost his homeland many years ago. Murad's father, Zorab, was a very practical man. However, Murad was considered a natural descendant of Uncle Khosrow. It was prevalent in the Haroglanian tribe that a man could be the father of his son's flesh, but that did not mean he was also the father of his spirit. The distribution of various kinds of spirit was inconsistent and drifting in the Haroglanian tribe. Aram and Murad rode on the horseback with a carefree spirit and happiness that made them feel as if they were back in their native lands of Armenia. Next, Murad asked Aram to get down as he wanted to ride the horse alone. He also explained to Aram that it was the horse's decision whether it would allow someone to ride it. He also said that he had a way with horses, and thus it would allow him to ride on its back. After Aram got down from the horse, Murad kicked his heels into the horse and shouted, "Wazir, run!" The horse stood up on its hind legs, snorted and burst into furious speed. Murad returned dripping wet 5 minutes later as the horse ran through the irrigation ditches. Next, it was the narrator's turn to ride alone. He leaped onto the horseback after Murad got down. However, the horse stood still without any movement. He followed Murad's instructions and kicked into the horse's muscles. Once again, it snorted and began to run at full speed. The narrator did not know how to ride a horse. The wild horse, instead of running across the field to the irrigation ditch, ran down the road towards the vineyard of Dikran Halabian and began to leap over vines. The horse leaped over 7 vines before the narrator fell down. However, the horse continued running and disappeared. It took the narrator and his cousin half an hour to track down the horse. Murad, however, taught the narrator to lie and say that it was his first day riding the horse in case they got caught. He did not want both of them to be liars. He also told him how he had trained the horse to behave nicely and listen to commands. He assured Aram that he would develop the same understanding with the horse once he grew up. They decided to hide the horse in the barn of a deserted vineyard which once belonged to a farmer named Fedvajan. On their way back, the narrator realized that Murad had been frequently riding the horse for quite some time. In the evening, their uncle Khosrov visited Aram's house for coffee and cigarettes. He sat sipping his coffee and remembering his old country. Soon, another visitor joined him, an Assyrian farmer named John Byro. He was a native of Assyria but had learned to speak Armenian in order to communicate with the narrator's tribe. He did this out of loneliness and need for company and friendship. He too was served coffee and tobacco. He then complained about his lost white horse, which he said was stolen in the previous month. Uncle Khosrov was irritated at his whining and shouted at him, asking him not to worry about a stolen horse since they had lost bigger things, like their homeland. John Byro complained that his surrey, which had cost him $60, was useless without a horse, and that walking for 10 miles pained his left leg. Uncle Khosrov was furious at all this complaining and left the narrator's house, slamming the door on his way out. After the farmer left Aram's house, Aram ran to Murad's home. Murad was sitting under a peach tree trying to repair the hurt wing of a young robin. He was talking to the bird. Aram made his cousin promise not to give back the horse to Byro till he learned to ride it. Murad told him that it would probably take him a year to learn how to ride a horse. Murad was furious when Aram suggested that they keep the horse for a year. He was furious that Aram was asking a member of the Haroglanian tribe to steal. He said that the horse must be returned to its rightful owner. However, he allowed the narrator 6 months' time till he returned the horse. Note the simplicity and innocence of the two boys, who think that keeping a horse to learn riding is not stealing and would not hurt the credentials of their tribe. The two cousins practiced riding the horse every morning for the next 2 weeks. But every time it was Aram's turn to ride alone, the horse threw him down and ran away. Without being disheartened, the boy continued his efforts of learning to ride the horse. One such morning, on their way back to hide the horse in Fedvajan's barn, they met farmer John Byro, the original owner of the horse. They greeted him. He studied their horse closely and asked Murad for its name. Murad replied that he called it My Heart in Armenian. Byro examined the horse closely and said that the horse stolen from him had looked exactly the same. He did not accuse the two boys of stealing, as he knew their tribe and their families. He refused to believe his eyes and did not call out the theft. Overcome by guilt and to maintain the dignity of their tribe, the boys returned the horse to John Byro's barn the next morning. Murad's attachment to animals proved helpful once again, as the dogs in the barn did not make any noises. Byro returned to Aram's house the same evening and showed his mother the horse which was once stolen. He thanked God for his horse was stronger than ever and better tempered too. It was once again Uncle Khosrow who asked him not to fuss further as he got his horse back. Thus, we see how Byro lived by the principles of tolerance and non-violence. He did not want to destroy the reputation of the tribe by accusing them of thieving. He pointed out the tribe values and virtues to the boys in the most dignified manner, thereby striking their conscience. With that, we come to the end of this story. We hope you have found this video lesson interesting. See you soon in our recap and question and answer videos.